Gliscor is probably the #1 Pokemon I hate playing against competitively. It's literally the most annoying thing to go up against because 99% of the time, people just use it as a defensive Toxic Staller with Protect that slowly whittles away your will to live. But the thing is, Gliscor can be really fun to use if you just enjoy life a little bit. It's got base 95 attack and speed, and paired with its big physical bulk and toxic heal ability to keep it healthy, it gets some really easy opportunities to get some combos going. Starting off with Swords Dance to go ahead and double that attack. Especially if people are predicting the classic stall Gliscor, the element of surprise comes in handy when we now hit him with a Terra Normal boosted Facade, which is a 140 power normal move since we're already poisoned via the Toxic Orb. We've also obviously got Big Stab Earthquakes, and even Stab Dual Wing Beat to surprise things like Great Tusk switch-ins. I may be the world's biggest Gliscor hater, but honestly it's just a really cool Pokemon that's way more fun to use as a sweeper. And today we're bringing justice to my ground-flying scorpion vampire friend. Look, the fact of the matter is, I would rather wait in line at the DMV for 4 hours with an uncharged cell phone, and then finally when you get to the front, they tell you you have the wrong paperwork. And then when you get home, your wife says you got to replace all of the duvet covers, then play against a Toxic Stall Protect Gliscor. However, today I get to be the one playing with the Gliscor, and honestly, it's way more fun if you just use it as an offensive guy. It's such a cool Pokemon, and it can be fun to use. You just have to not be lame with it. Now, before we jump into the matches, I'm going to tell you about a really cool sponsor that is also fun to use. Shout out to Raycon. Listen, I know you forgot Mother's Day is coming up, but have no fear because Raycon is going to save the day with the greatest gift idea. Imagine a gift that mom can use every day. And now stop imagining because I'm going to tell you about Raycon's bone conduction headphones. These babies fit on the outside of the ears so you can listen to high quality music or podcasts or anything audio while staying aware of what's going on around you. Whether mom's out for a walk, doing yoga, or running an errand, she can still get amazingly clear sound without the feeling of being closed off from her surroundings. Plus, these are truly just the most comfortable way to listen to audio these days. Plus, it's a thoughtful and easy Mother's Day gift that fits into any mother's routine. So I've been trying out a pair myself while walking my dog, and the way these work is honestly really nice. The sound is sent through vibrations in your bones, which is crazy, but your ears stay open to the world, and I've got to admit they're way more comfortable and easy to wear than any of my other headphone options. You get premium performance without the premium price tag, insanely long 13-hour plus battery life, plus the no bud fit that doesn't slip at all. These have become part of my daily walking routine, plus I know my mom would love these for just about any of her exercising since you can hardly tell you have anything on. So go ahead and celebrate the moms in your life. Go to buyraycon.com/HaydunBC to get 15% off the bone conduction headphones, and thanks a ton to Raycon for sponsoring. And now we're going to go ahead and get into the match. Alright, so my opponent is actually going to end up leading off with big surprise the Grimmsnarl. Honestly, probably top 3 least favorite guys to go up against also. It turns out that this thing is always on a team that also has the Gliscor. But today we can, generally just expect the classic light clay prankster screens to get set up. I do go with the Vikavolt. I want to set up some sticky web. And with things sufficiently stickied up, it actually feels pretty good. They don't seem to have great hazard control unless it's like defog cleaver, which I doubt. But the interesting matchup against the Grimmsnarl is that I don't want to go for the Volt Switch early. I want to go ahead, click the Bug Buzz there because I expect them to go for the second set of screens. And then I can Volt Switch on the parting shot. Turns out they actually just go for the Spirit Break, which hurts and drops my special attack, which isn't really a huge deal. But now I decide to go for the Volt Switch, expecting them to swap that thing out. And they do bring in Cleavers. I'm like, ain't no way this thing has defog. I think it gets defog, right? Regardless, it's probably just here to be a Choice Scarf Stone Axe guy. That's always what I imagine Cleaver's going to be. I do get the Volt Switch off, which is nice. Does do a nice little chunk, but more importantly, gives me the Switch Initiative here to bring in whatever I want against it. And I decide to go Slimy Boy. I'm going to go into the Gastrodon because I have a great matchup. Turns out they do stay in and just go for the Stone Axe, which does allow me this opportunity to set up my Stealth Rock as well. We do take a little bit of damage, but it's fine. I'm totally fine with trading rocks at this point. I also now threaten out this Cleaver with an easy surf. I mean, there's almost no way that this Cleaver stays in here. So the first thought in my mind is, what's their switch in to Gastrodon at this point? Probably, if I'm looking at it on their squad, going to be something like the Blissey. So expecting them to swap out into the Bliss, I'm actually going to end up bringing in the Gliscor. Now, they do end up swapping, but they don't go Blissey. They end up bringing in freaking Dragonite. Also great, no boots on the Dragonite does take some chip there with the Stealth Rock, meaning now its multi-scale is broken, and this is still a great matchup As long as this is not a special attacking Dragonite, it's probably just Dragon Dance with E-Speed. And honestly, hard switching into the Gliscor here is great because it immediately procs my Toxic Orb. Now, as the Forbidden Grape Juice gets us going, at this point, I either can set up or I can just go for a Facade. I opt to just go right for the Facade because there are things that I'm kind of worried about in terms of setting up too early. And just honestly, a Facade damage is pretty nice. Now, they do end up bringing back in Grimmsnarl here. It's caught up in Sticky Web. We're going to be faster for sure, as most of the time this thing's just going to be max HP, and it probably wants to come in to set up screens. Now, this is actually a matchup that I'm kind of fine with because as I get some nice damage there, Poison Heal brings me back to full. And as I imagine, they're probably just going to set up their Reflect as they do. I either could set up Swords Dance or I just go for another Facade. The thing about Facade here is it actually does kill through that Reflect. So as I take out the Grimmsnarl, it's not going to have the ability to set back up any screens, which is honestly the value I'm looking for. So with that thing out of the way, they now get a free switch into Gambit. Now, one bad part about King Gambit is that it has always a chance to be Defiant. And every time you're running a Sticky Web team, it's going to be freaking Defiant. So it comes in, immediately gets that attack boost. Quite unfortunate. However, Gliscor is a thick fella. If there's anything who wants to take anything on the physical side, it's probably my buff-ass Zubat. So I decided to go for an Earthquake through the Reflect. Not quite going to cut it in terms of damage. But luckily, since I'm faster, this matchup, even as they go for the substitute here, that's kind of fine. They probably expected me to potentially switch, but I'm clicking Earthquake every time there. I figured behind a sub, they're going to want to set up a Swords Dance. But at this point now, I just need to kind of assess the situation that is the freaking guy behind a beanbag is wildly unfortunate. I go for an Earthquake there, breaks through the sub. Luckily, it's enough to break through the sub. I probably could have set up Swords Dances against that Grimmsnarl, would have been pretty beneficial. But as they now go for a Swords Dance, I feel like this next turn could make or break the match. Now, if I'm them in this situation, I probably click Sucker Punch. So expecting that, I'm going to instead go for a Swords Dance of my own. As they do Sucker Punch, we bypass that with the Swords Dance, and now the great part is an Earthquake is in range to kill the guy. Now, this thing has tons of attack boosts, and now we have a Sucker Punch mind game. Am I going to Swords Dance again? Nope, I just go for the Earthquake, and they get the prediction wrong. They probably just went for the Iron Head there, but instead I just Earthquake because I saw the kill, and that is going to take care of the Gambit. Honestly, diabolical getting rid of that Gambit before it was able to do anything with that Defiant boost and a Swords Dance. And you absolutely love to see it. So as they bring back in Dragonite, just with 2 Stealth Rock switch-ins, Buddy's hurting. But I figure just to guarantee, the Reflect is still up. And to guarantee that this thing does not see the light of day, I'm gonna go ahead and bust out the blinged out Gliscor. Everybody gangster until the Gliscor pulls up with the ice. I go for that Terra Normal. I can outspeed it because I am naturally faster than a Dragonite, which is fun. And a Swords Dance boosted Facade is gonna be able to take care of it, especially with the Terra Normal. So with that Dragonite out of the way, they don't even Extreme Speed because it's not worth it at this point. And as they bring in young Blade Arms, I am thinking even if it's Choice Scarf, that Sticky Web offsets that, meaning I will be faster. Gliscor's speed tier is amazing, especially when you're just running max speed. I will be able to get off an Earthquake, totally feeling like this is just enough to knock it out. Nope, it lives it with like 2 HP. Somehow, which is insane. But all they can really do, they go for the Night Slash there, hoping for the crit, not going to quite be enough. And the Salt in the Wound is that the Toxic Heal, after like 2 turns, just gets rid of all that damage. So I can continue to outspeed the guy. That's going to be able to take care of the Cleaver. And at this point, they're down to 2 Mons left. They do have a Roaring Moon, which I'm mildly worried about. And then they have the Blissey in the back, which obviously Gliscor does not give a damn about. The main thing that could stop me here would potentially be, I guess, Booster Energy Speed on the Roaring Moon. The Reflect also does wear off, which is fortunate. As they bring in the Moon, this guy looks like he's flying. He is not. He is in fact touching the ground, maybe with the tip of the tail there. Gets caught up in the Sticky Web, which should allow me to be faster unless this is Booster Energy Speed. Photosynthesis activates and it's attack. So Buddy has been absolutely cooked by the blinged out Gliscor. We're going to be able to outspeed. A Facade easily knocks this thing out, but Buddy's just going to go ahead and dip. So immediately we get the Gliscor to just force a run, which you don't even need to click Toxic Protect and Substitute to be annoying with the Gliscor. You can just go full offensive, and that's why he's buff as hell. But that's now going to bring us into game number 2. And obviously, first of all, if you've stuck around this far, go ahead and do me a favor. You might as well hit the like button. Also, see if you can do the hype option on YouTube. Also, I don't know if that does anything, but give it a try if you have it. Anyway, this next match, we're going up against a very scary squad. Honestly, pretty much everything here I have at least one time had a nightmare about, and it's going to make for an interesting game, so let's jump into it. All right, so the lead matchup was something I considered here because obviously we see the Great Tusk on their side. And I'm worried about just setting up Sticky Web and then getting it rapid spinned. However, it's kind of I'm gonna force them to have to rapid spin that shit away if that's what they want to do. So I lead off with the Vikavolt. Turns out they go with this Screamtail. Turn 1 Wish is honestly kind of crazy. Main thing I'm worried about with Screamtail is it just like setting up a whole bunch, but a Wish turn 1 is kind of fine. I am gonna end up going for the Volt Switch as this thing is faster, but they, you know, they're not gonna allow that. They go for the Encore. They're like, you know, those sticky webs are so nice. You're gonna set them up twice. Doesn't work out. The Encore me into that. That's fine. I'm looking at this thing thinking, I don't know what the hell this guy wants to do, but it's probably gonna like Calm Mind or something along the lines of that. So my ass is gonna bring in Gliscor immediately, because even if they bring in Tusk, I'm honestly, most of the time people don't expect a dual wing beat. So I go Gliscor. Turns out I come in on a Thunder Wave. I totally predicted that, and that works out nicely. And now Grape Juice active, baby. We got the Toxic Orb going, so we already have immediate full power Facades, but what makes that even better is that I can get up a free Swords Dance at this point. And with the Sticky Web up, I'm going to be faster than everything they've got. Obviously, they don't have anything that's not touching the ground. Now, as they bring in the Pecharunt, I mean, this is a poison type, so it's like it's gonna live in fear of an Earthquake. But even after a Swords Dance, this thing has crazy ass defense. It probably lives one, and I'm looking at this thing thinking, why did they switch this in? The answer is that it probably is going to click Hex or something. I go for that Earthquake regardless. It barely lives, which is honestly unfortunate. But as they go for the Hex, I know that I can take at least one of those. Does do a big chunk, but then Poison Heal's like, no, it didn't. A little extra heal for the road. Just like that, we're back in green. Now, another Earthquake is going to knock it out, which is actually amazing because Pecharunt is annoying as hell with Poison Puppeteer. So I'm just firing off Quakes at this point. And they figure, you know, their easiest way and kind of the only way they have around this thing is kind of honestly Great Tusk. It's a defensive fella. It takes the Earthquake right to the Tusks, which is fine. It does do less than half, and they're probably like, fine, this is perfect. I can now just live the next Earthquake, Ice Spinner this fella, and then they don't have to deal with the Gliscor anymore. However, what they fail to consider is I do a wing beat that ass like mom with a belt. I go ahead and hit him with 1, pop him with 2. We do take Rocky Helmet on each attack there, which is unfortunate, but it is enough to take care of the Tusk, which is satisfying as hell. Great Tusk being such a common switch into Gliscor, that's going to take care of it. Stab, dual wing beat is amazing. Even after that Rocky Helmet, we're hurt, but Poison Heal brings us right back. And honestly, it's just kind of Omega leftover. So, with that thing out of the way, they're kind of honestly running out of options to things that can live. First of all, live a +2 attack from a Gliscor, but also be able to outspeed. So, as they bring in the Hisuian Samurott, it still cannot outspeed me even if it's Choice Scarf. So I'm thinking this is fine. A Facade just knocks it out, especially if I bust out the Terra Normal. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, I do kind of fear priority. I'm like, does this thing get super effective priority? Do not believe it does. I'm going to go for that Terra Normal because once again, Gliscor is not entering a match without pulling the ice out. Damn near blinding people. I'm honestly going to kind of miss the Terra mechanic. When this shit's gone, I don't know, games are going to feel so different. A lot of Pokemon rely on this. But I go for that Terra Normal. Turns out, surprise, they do have the Sucker Punch. However, we live it. We're able to live because of our defense, and they have seen enough. They just turn their game off before the Facade even gets to them. But luckily for us, we do get to see that thing not get knocked out to that, so that's satisfying. But honestly, the forced Rage Quit is hilarious. We're forcing Rage Quits even without Gliscor doing its usual Gliscor shenanigans, and that is a tremendous dub. Just forcing that Rage Quit. But that's not as satisfying as it could be. I mean, we just basically would have swept the team with Gliscor there. But look, we've got another match here. And this one, some crazy nonsense happens in this one that maybe has never happened before. But it's against honestly a pretty scary Sandstorm team. It's pretty unique. So with that, let's jump into this one. You're gonna like it. All right, so first thing to note, they do have a Rapid Spinner with the Excadrill. Am I still gonna set up Sticky Webs? You bet your sweet ass I'm gonna. I lead off with the Vikavolt. Turns out they go with the Sandy Shock. So Punk Rock Magnets, I figure probably just a lead to set up Stealth Rock as well. It also is going to have Booster Energy, which is things that I enjoy seeing from a lead standpoint, because now as soon as this thing swaps out, it's going to just lose that. So I figure that's probably fine. It gets that special attack boost, which it will be able to knock me out in one hit, or at least knock me down to Sash, but they click Earth Power. Either a complete remembering of freaking Levitate Vikavolt, or they overpredict. Regardless, I get up my Sticky Web for free, and that always feels pretty good. I now have the option to either take an attack and then hit it with a big energy ball, or I can swap and I can conserve the Focus Sash as long as I don't have the Stealth Rock up later. So I do decide to switch. I figure Gastrodon is kind of a free switch in here, just because they probably now just go for T-Bolt, maybe even a Volt Switch. But they just go this Raw Dog a Terra Blast. You know, sometimes you just gotta throw out a normal Terra Blast. I feel you on that. But the slug likes it, because at this point I can either set up my stealth rock, I can predict a switch and hit something hard. I decide to actually end up going for an earth power. I want to see if either A, they're gonna like they might even just Terra Grass, Terra Blast me if they have that. It's probably Terra Ice though, because most of them are. But I go for the earth power here. Now, I'm kind of concerned about Excadrill coming in being Air Balloon, so I was kind of reluctant to go for the earth power, but they actually just swap into young Ogerpon, who is a grassy and rocky fella. Earth power doesn't really do a whole lot, but now I'm just living in danger of a Horn Leech just sending my ass to where slugs go to die. So after some leftovers recovery, I figure I can honestly pretty freely swap into Gliscor. And if I can get Gliscor going early in this match, it feels like I have a fantastic matchup against a lot. There are still some things that can stop the Gliscor in terms of speed control being like Sand Rush with... Even with the Sticky Web up, Sand Rush is going to be scary. But as I bring this thing in, they actually go for the spikes. So as general cornerstone fashion, they are going to be a spike setup. And as I get my Toxic there, the great part about Gliscor, kind of an unassuming fella, especially in this matchup. They're probably like, okay, he might Toxic, I don't know, to protect, do nonsense. A lot of the time, you know, Gliscor is not an immediate offensive threat, but I can go ahead, pop a Swords Dance, and just like that, we're looking scary. They do go for a second set of spikes. Now, spikes would be scary if it wasn't for the fact that does Gliscor even need to switch out of here? We're going to find out. I go for the Earthquake now. I figured one Swords Dance probably enough, and that is going to be able to take care of the Ogerpon. So that's quite nice. Honestly, any Ogerpon just feels like a threatening fella, and that thing out of the way is nice. So now we get to see kind of what their answer is going to be. Now, I know that the thing is they can outspeed me with a speed boosted Excadrill in the sand, but first of all they need to get that sand up. So as they bring in Tyranitar here, it does its job in getting the sand stream going. However, something has to take an attack here. Now if I'm them, I'm fully predicting them to go for a defensive Terra here against an Earthquake. So instead of Quaking, I'm actually going to fire off a Facade here. Just feels like better damage. I know they're going to go for a Terra. They do go for the Ground Terra, so they lose. I'm no longer going to have a super effective Earthquake. But I also know that there's nothing that Tyranitar can do to really knock me out here. So as I go for the now neutral Facade, it does some big boy damage, but as they go for the knockoff, that's just going to be their highest form of damage likely against the Gliscor. It gets rid of my Toxic Orb, but does not matter. I already got the poison from it. And just like that, I'm already back to above half, which is quite satisfying. So at this point, either they swap out the T-Tar and try to get up Sandstream for later, or they just leave it in and an Earthquake knocks it out. So they do stay in. Down goes the T-Tar. They now no longer have a way to set up the Sandstorm, which is kind of nice because I do have a Torkoal on my squad, so I can immediately turn this sand off if I wish. But Gliscor is still looking like I have a good matchup, and while the Excadrill can outspeed me, it does not really have a kill from this range. So they actually instead decide to go into Hisuian Arcanine. This thing is interesting because only real thing it could do here is extreme speed, and that's what it does. It gets some big damage, honestly, with that extreme speed. I don't know if is that banded damage? It could be. Either way, his ass is going to be enjoying that choice band in the Shadow Realm because an Earthquake 4 times effective is going to knock it out. So down goes the Hisuian Arcanine, which is honestly another huge threat out of the way. And while it does get some chip on me, every single turn they let pass, I'm just going to heal myself a whole bunch. So now they bring in Dugtrio, and this is an interesting one because I'm immediately just like, boom, Earthquake does about 1000% damage to the guy. But then I consider, well, if it's Focus Sash, that could be a bad time. And there's one way around that, and that's if I click a Dual Wing Beat. A way to get around a Focus Sash is to just hit something twice, and a Dual Wing Beat definitely has enough to knock this thing out, especially after a Swords Dance. So I can outspeed because of the Sticky Web. First Dual Wing Beat is going to knock it down to that Sash, and these hot dogs are just watching in terror as this next wing comes and just steals that last HP. So satisfying to play around the Focus Sash. Down goes the Dugtrio, and you love to see it. So also what that means is I get another turn of Poison Heal to bring myself even closer to being able to maybe live an attack from the impending Excadrill that I know outspeeds me, but I don't know if they know this. So they do finally go Excadrill. If it was Air Balloon, it wouldn't even have to worry about Sticky Web. But it gets caught up in the web, and with this thing speed doubled, but at -1, it is still faster. They're able to go for the Iron Head, and damn it does have enough to knock me out. So while Gliscor does die for the first time today, I am honestly pretty excited about this because this opens up an opportunity for something I've never pulled off, or no one's ever pulled off before. So look, I'm gonna first bring in Torkoal because honestly, just turning the sand into sun is beneficial in the first place, but also this Torkoal is completely full of shenanigans. So look, I get the drought up first of all. Second of all, I'm gonna go Terra Flying. It's gonna allow me to dodge an Earthquake, and then I can click Inferno, and there's gonna be some nonsense that comes with that. So, I mean, Torkoal is the slowest Pokemon in the game. My entire challenge with this Torkoal was to make it fast, and I'm actually running a plus speed nature, max speed Torkoal, and you're about to see it play out. They go for the Earthquake. I avoid it with the Terra Flying, which is quite nice. I can go for an Inferno, and just to play right into my plan, it misses. We want that to miss, because that is now going to activate a Blunder Policy, and just like that, Torkoal now at +2 speed versus an Excadrill. We are faster than this Excadrill, even if the Sticky Web was not up. Now we can complete the combo with the move Temper Flare. Temper Flare is a 75 power move that, when used after a turn that move failed, it doubles in power. I'm able to outspeed the Excadrill with a Torkoal, and that fellow was probably about confused as hell. What just happened there? So we got the Torkoal to outspeed something. Not only that, but their final mon is Sandy Shocks. And the best part about this is I'm faster than the Sandy Shocks too. A base 20 speed Torkoal is faster than Sandy Shocks, especially because it just has a special attack photosynthesis. So I now have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever if an Earthquake can kill it. Actually, I think Solar Beam does a little bit more damage, but I opted for the Earthquake, hoping maybe it would be enough. Sadly, it's not. It's able to live that. And since I went for the Terra Flying, it now has a super effective discharge. So it takes care of the Torkoal, but not before the shenanigans were had. We got the Torkoal to outspeed, and that's why we played the damn game out here, completely for the nonsense. But at this point, all I really need to do is go into anything faster, than the Sandy Shocks, and all I need to do, go into the Fetus Yeetus, throw a baby at him, and call it a day. I can go for a Dragon Dart that should be able to finish it. I would have loved to. The interesting calc was that Torkoal is mostly built on physical attacks. I wasn't sure if a super effective Solar Beam with no investment on special attack was better than Earthquake, but regardless, it wouldn't have been able to kill it, I don't think, anyway. But a Dragon Darts does, and that's some revenge for the Torkoal. And that is the end of the game on that one. That was just a ridiculous ass match. But I actually have one more bonus game. We got a four match video today, because I'm out here. Surprisingly, I'm about to say a sentence I've never had. I'm having fun with the Gliscor. And let's jump into it. All right, so I probably say this every time, but this one's crazy. This is a really good match against, honestly, an extremely scary Rain team. So as they lead off with the Basculegion, I decide to go Vikavolt here. I'm gonna set up my Sticky Web, just as I generally do. They have the tusks, they can spin it away, but I have a spin blocker, so I figure it's fine. Now, instead of a flip turn, they actually just decide to hard switch. They're gonna go immediately into the tusk, which, honestly, fair. They know the webs are coming. They send in the spinny boy, and that's kind of all according to plan, because knowing that they probably click Rapid Spin here, unless they predict the switch into the Dragapult, I'm always going to hard switch Dragapult here. I want to try to block a spin, keep my webs up as long as possible. It's going to be my best way around Swift Swim and freaking Basculegion and stuff. So as I go into Dragapult, I am instead met with a knockoff, and that's just a flat out good play. That does take care of Dragapult, unfortunately. And just like that, I'm down one of my best mons, and I'll give it to him. I figure that's always an opportunity for them to click, but I should have probably just stayed in an Energy Ball. Anyway, I gotta make something happen. They're probably gonna be able to spin him away, but Vikavolt still has its sash and can set those webs up later if needed. But I'm gonna take this opportunity to just go right into the Gliscor. I figure they can't knock off my orb because of the fact that I curse bodied it, so that's at least kind of nice and gives me a free position to set up a nice little Swords Dance here. So as they bring in Pelipper, the sequence of events that I'm kind of afraid of is that I take some chip here, and then even if I knock out Pelipper, they'll be able to just switch in the Basculegion. And if I've taken a little bit of damage, even with the Terra Normal, just a neutral hit, I'll probably die. But after a Swords Dance, I'm gonna go for Terra Normal for Facade. It's my biggest damage. And if I can knock out this Pelipper, that honestly might even just seal the game this early on. I'm gonna go for the biggest damage possible here. Worst case is that this thing is just maxed out in defenses. If it is, it will be able to take this Facade. I do know that, but my ass is clicking it anyway. I get blinged out, I go for the +2 Terra Normal Facade, and it lives it with like 10 HP, which is wildly unfortunate. It allows them to now go for a Surf, which after my Poison Heal, I'm relatively healthy, but that just leads me now to a spot where they can hard switch. First of all, they can go Basculegion here on my next Facade and then outspeed me. So expecting them to actually conserve the Pelipper and bring in the Basculegion, I'm going to expect that and go for the dual Wing Beat. If this dual Wing Beat knocks out this Basculegion, once again, I'm feeling like I have a winnable match here. It gets caught up in Sticky Web, but with Swift Swim, it's going to be faster. And as I go for the dual Wing Beat, unfortunately, once again, it's just not quite enough damage to knock it out. And that's kind of the theme of this whole game, is that I'm just like just an inch short on all my damage. But now I know that this thing outspeeds me. There's no real reason to leave Gliscor in. You hate to waste a Swords Dance, but my best play and easiest way to counter Basculegion, which is really good value for me, is Storm Drain Gastrodon. So I can go right into the slimy fella. They go for the Surf as expected, and that gives me a Storm Drain. So I'm always expecting this Basculegion to be choice specs. Knowing that that's probably the case here, I'm pretty much free to do my best option, and that's set up Stealth Rock. I want to get my Stealth Rock up really badly here, because that means that the next time Pelipper comes in, it'll actually die to the Stealth Rock before it gets its Drizzle up. So the Stealth Rock does go up, which is really nice, but they have an Amoonguss, which is not great for me. So this kind of puts my back up against the wall, where I have a boosted Ice Beam, which will do probably 60% to it, but then I'm going to be put to sleep via Spore. So I'm like, Gastrodon is too valuable, especially with that Basculegion matchup, to just give them that for free. So instead, I decide to go into Torkoal. I figure if anything wants to be put to sleep, this damn guy's eyes are already closed. So, I mean, it's like we're already halfway there. I bring in Torkoal, I change the rain over to Sun, knowing that they cannot go back into Pelipper at this point to switch that over because of the Stealth Rock. Still in a decent spot, and of course, you know, they do click Spore there. So burning a guaranteed turn of sleep here, I just click the Inferno. And as they make the good play here, they go back into the Great Tusk. And this is actually unfortunate for a number of different reasons, because of the fact that also it's going to get Photosynthesis, just with my Sun being up, but now it's going to also be able to be in a spot where, since I no longer have Dragapult, they're kind of just free to click Rapid Spin, which is unfortunate. I probably should have predicted this switch, honestly, and made a double of my own, just expecting them to go into Tusk. But at this point, there's not really much I can do except for hope that I wake up and land an Inferno. And as they go for that Rapid Spin, gets rid of my webs and my rocks, which is wildly unfortunate, but the Torkoal is also still going to stay asleep. You thought his ass was going to wake up. Nope, we're still sleeping. Now, at this point, I'm kind of honestly in a really bad spot to where I'm just hoping to wake up, and actually land an Inferno would kind of be my best thing just to guarantee a burn. So they go for the Stealth Rock of their own here. I do wake up, which is nice. And as I go for the Inferno, sometimes you hope it hits, sometimes you hope it misses. This time it does miss. Would have preferred, I think, to get the burn there, but it does activate my Blunder Policy, and this puts us in a really funny speed spot. But this thing did switch into Sticky Web, but it Rapid Spun, but I'm still faster. After +2, Torkoal is still faster. I can get off a Solar Beam. Would be so nice if this killed. Nope, it lives it with it barely lives it in the red. Again, another case of something just not quite having enough damage, and that's like the third time that's happened to me already. So they can finish me off with an Earthquake. And the reality is, them getting rid of that Stealth Rock really kind of lowers my chances of this being an easy matchup, just because Pelipper can come back in and set up that rain, and Basculegion is still an asshole. So I have a couple different options on what I want to bring in here. I decide I'm just going to go into Gliscor. Also, unfortunate part about them setting up Stealth Rock is that now Vikavolt Sash is broken. So I go Gliscor here just because I know that nothing really can switch in here. If I go Facade and they go Basculegion, there's absolutely no way they're bringing that. So I just click the Facade. It's going to be enough to take care of the Tusk, but not before this thing was annoying enough to freaking spin away my stuff. So I get that Facade off. It takes care of it. I do take some Rocky Helmet, which is annoying. And now really the only thing that they can do is go Pelipper and set back up the rain. But the main thing about this whole situation is that I'm not that afraid of that, because if they go Pelipper here, which they do, I'm going to be faster and either I knock it out or they switch into something. But then as the Basculegion comes in, I still have the pressure of Gastrodon in the back. And I'm going to try to play that to my benefit. So I go for the Facade. They have no option to switch here. They kind of just need to leave in the Pelipper. Facade takes care of it. And now we got ourselves in an interesting spot. So their easiest way and most obvious switch in here is just to go Basculegion. It outspeeds. A Surf boosted in the rain is going to be enough to knock me out at this range. And as I do go Basculegion, here's the thing. There's basically a coin flip situation. I think to myself, I might even bet, like, the obvious play is to go Gastrodon here. I'm thinking to myself, surely there's no way they just lock themselves into Surf once again as I bring in a Storm Drain Gastrodon. So it could be a little bit risky, but I'm thinking their kind of good prediction play here is to actually click Shadow Ball for like a maybe 2-hit KO on Gastrodon. So as I leave in the Gliscor expecting them to predict that switch, they don't. They just flat out click the obvious Surf, and that takes care of Gliscor. I'm not gonna lie, I got on my own head and a little bit fancy there, just in terms of being like, surely they're not gonna just click Surf because I have this damn guy, but they do, and it does make sense. Seeing it from their eyes, they really don't lose much from clicking Surf there anyway, even if I did go Gastrodon, because they still have an Amoonguss in the back. So I probably could have played that better. I just felt like the payoff was far greater than the risk, but down goes the Gliscor, and that is unfortunate. So I can go into Gastrodon now, and as I go for the Earth Power just as a middle ground play, in case they stayed in for some reason, they don't. They go into the Amoonguss. It actually activates an eject button, which is kind of funny. So it switches it out. It'll come back at full health, just regenerated. And this allows them to bring back in Basculegion. So I'm thinking, hold on. I can still actually easily get through this Basculegion, but it's going to take some elbow grease. Now looking at this, either they go for a Shadow Ball and I live it, and then I can finish them with an Earth Power, or I can play towards the late game and set up Stealth Rock here. The Stealth Rock would be really beneficial for things in the back like Baxcalibur. I'll put it in range for where I could easily take care of it, but I do go for that Stealth Rock. Now as they click the Shadow Ball, that does such a close amount after leftover recovery to where I might actually just go down to 2 of them. But I get up my rocks regardless. I figure I'm going to need all the help I can get in this match, because I just have that scary Baxcalibur in the back that kind of ruins me, especially if it sets up. So at this point, I do not really have an option to switch. I'm thinking, how do I get around this Baxcalibur? And the answer is going to only really be kind of just Rampardos, who is not Choice Scarf, by the way. So they go for one more Shadow Ball here. I do live it with 9, which is clutch as hell, because now as I fire off an Earth Power, that takes care of the Basculegion. And just like that, we're kind of in this. There's going to need to be some things that go right for us, but theoretically, it could happen. So I have my rocks up. Now they can go into whatever they want. And if it's Baxcalibur who just sets up, I'm kind of just hoed. But I mean, honestly, it is what it is. They do go into the backs. And at this point, only really thing I can do is just stay in and click an Earth Power, hope that they knock me out. And then Rampardos, even after a Stealth Rock switch in, should be able to live in Icicle Crash from the Baxcalibur, as long as the one condition is that it's not Choice Banded. So they go for the Icicle Crash. That takes care of Gastrodon. That's kind of fine. I now have 2 Mons left, and only thing I can really do here is go Rampardos. Again, I have the cal. I know the cal is that even if this thing is an adamant Baxcalibur, an Icicle Crash does like 90%. That fails to consider the fact that an Earthquake actually does just kill me, along with probably a Glaive Rush. But that was kind of what I was thinking, at least. And if I can live this, that would be insane. They go for the Icicle Crash. I'm like, dude, I can live it. However, it turns out to be Choice Banded. And just like that, down goes the Rampardos. And, you know, the threats got the better of me on this one. Unfortunately, now Vikavolt comes in, and since my Focus Ash is useless because of them having their rocks up, I do suffer the same fate. And it was an interesting matchup here, where it was honestly the game-changing play was me not switching in Gastrodon on the Surf from the freaking Basculegion. But it is what it is. Still a really well played and interesting match against a very scary team, and you know, we had some fun along the way. So look, that's gonna do it for the video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate all the support, and I love you all. Peace out.